REI Portland. Last REI store in Portland. Only REI store in Portland. It's leaving. It just basically announced, hey, we can no longer do it with the safety issues we've got going on, with the crime, the homelessness, the drug addiction, the theft, organized retail theft, all of that. All these drug addicts running around stealing stuff, living on the streets. You got all that? REI says no go because all the things that make a dead shopping mall have already happened. They've already happened. And yet you've still got a newcomer like Shake Shack coming into Portland. Before they're even open, somebody smashes out one of their windows. Welcome to Portland for a day or a lifetime. Let's get into it. How else is Portland resembling a dead shopping mall? Here we go. Let's talk about it. So when you think about a mall, its success is often measured in the number of stores open and operating. If the mall is doing poorly, they close, and the more closed storefronts, the worse the perception of the health and prosperity of the mall. The mall can function as something of an analogy for thinking about downtown Portland, even if the latter is as much larger scale. City of Portland, big scale. Think of that as the big mall. The more businesses that thrive downtown, the better for the whole. The more that suffer, the worse. And so much of this has to do with tax-generated revenue. And most major downtown cities are going to be impacted because of the whole work from home during the pandemic, because everybody needed to close up shop because of a pandemic. I was extremely critical of that. We didn't need to close down. That was unnecessary. And so much of what we're experiencing now is not necessary. And yet it's what we're doing. So it's kind of like, Florida just kept rolling, right? They didn't really do much of this. How's their economy doing? Pretty good. Am I reading to you about REI and Whole Foods and Walmart leaving all kinds of communities in Florida? No, we've got bits and spurts. Every now and then they'll have one that for whatever reason, Walmart's leaving here. But you're not talking about REI leaving, these other communities. You're talking about Portland. You're talking about downtown Portland specifically. And downtown Portland and downtown San Francisco have the, worst downtowns to recuperate after the pandemic. And there's so much that's gone into that. And a lot of it has to do with they invited the culture that they're stuck with now. Decriminalize stuff, let people live wherever the F they want in a tent, hand out tents left and right. And then you wonder, hey, all these whacked out nut job homeless people, yeah, not good for business, huh? They're living on the sidewalks out in front of people's businesses, and businesses are getting to that point where they're like, yeah, I don't want to deal with this anymore. So the image of, downtown being a big mall conjures up the latest downtown business bombshell that broke this week. Outdoor retailer REI wrote in an email to customers that its longtime store in the Pearl District will close when its lease comes up at the end of February next year. This was a huge one for Portland. I've talked about this multiple times, and it's huge from the standpoint of REI is built for a city like Portland. It's built for a city like Seattle. And when you have that entity shut down and say, yep, we're done, we're out of here, kind of tells you something, right? You've got the physical geography that completely supports this business model. We're not talking about, out in the middle of Ohio somewhere. We're not talking about somewhere out in the middle of Oklahoma where it's all flat and you just don't see anything for miles and miles and miles. We are talking about from downtown Portland. You can see oceans, you can see rivers, multiple big rivers, you can see mountains, you can see terrain, you can see hikes. I mean, you've got it all right there. Portland is built for REI, and yet REI is saying, I don't think so. And REI came right out and said, it's because of security. We can't keep our patrons, our management, our staff. We can't keep anybody safe. We don't want to be here anymore. So they're out. It's the only REI store in the Portland city limits, and it's been serving the area for nearly 2 decades. The company said that last year, even with increased security, They dealt with the highest number of break-ins and thefts since they opened the store. Now, I believe, I'm going off memory here, that I believe they've had cars rammed into them at least 2 times. You know, where you drive your car just Mad Max style right through that front door, and you know, you have a bunch of people rush in and grab stuff. Yeah, you got that going on. In Portland, REI said, don't think so. We're shutting her down. The company also said that it had outgrown the current space and could not reach a deal with the landlord to address the issues. So they're moving on out. You know what? If it was really that big of a deal, they would have worked out something with the landlord. They would have figured it out. They didn't want to. They knew the space wasn't for them, and they moved out. They're just like, and they called it the way it is. Yeah, we got security. We got break-ins. We got thefts. Got all kinds of shenanigans going on here. We don't want to be here anymore. The corporate profit isn't worth, REI is a co-op, so it's a little bit different. Still, you know, same thing applies. You can't have a situation where, you know, patrons of REI going in and getting that, you know, triple layer waterproof shell coat for the next mountaineering trip get killed. That's not a good look. In the REI store, getting that piece of equipment, right? You can't have that. So REI corporate said, management said, no, we're done. We're out of here. It isn't entirely about crime and safety, since REI cited the issues with the current landlord, but in the company's statement to customers and the media, they led with the break-ins and theft and not the real estate drama. For that, I am super thankful that they were honest about it. They're honest about it. And that's what a lot of other businesses in Portland, San Francisco, Seattle, LA are facing, because the environments that they're located in. Chicago, how about Chicago? That's some craziness. Got some wilding going on there, right? What, just kids just going crazy in the streets, just running around, destroying things, breaking into stores. The story heard from a marketing professor at Portland State University who said that the REI announcement will be a big factor for other retail stores that may be considering downtown Portland for the next locations. You're really betting on the future when you invest into a retail store, said Professor Thomas Kilpatrick. So got to keep in mind, Professor Thomas has never run a business, but he's read about it in a book. So yeah, that's okay. So we're just going to go with it. So what this is really sending a message to all of us in Portland is Portland looks not as attractive as we have been in the past. I think that is a very accurate statement, probably a little understated. Portland looks not as attractive as it has in the past. It was far more attractive, slightly less attractive. Been talking about this since the pandemic. Portland doesn't look attractive at all, especially in the downtown core, because you can't get folks back when you got people living in tents just willy-nilly wherever, doing their willy-nilly lifestyle. And that's what Portland's all about right now. You got Fentanyl Alley, you got overdoses happening on the regular. You've got businesses, coffee shop, local coffee shop just closed up. And you've got all these storylines, and they're all because the city inherently just isn't safe. Neither San Francisco. Whole Foods moving out. I mean, these stories are, you don't have to be a genius. You can even be a, real estate guy and figure out these lines, right? So the owner of another downtown business echoed a theme of messages that the story's viewers often stand in when referencing downtown Portland. Whether you're very conservative or very liberal, at some point, everybody just gets fed up. And that's where we are now. And so a lot of the stories and this was said by Chris Ham, is a manager of Oregon's finest marijuana dispensary. That's a good name. Oregon's finest. Oregon's finest what? Well, it's a marijuana dispensary. Come in and get the finest. Get the good stuff. Not that stuff that other guy's selling down over there. This is the good stuff. Don't they always tell you that? They always said that. It's the best. It's the best ever. It's like, really? What's my point of reference here? I don't know. At some point, they're going to have to do something, right? It's going to reach a fever pitch. Got to do something about it. We've been saying that for quite a few years now. It's getting worse. It's getting worse. Something's going to happen. It's going to break. These businesses moving out, that is the tipping point. For me, I had my good friend Mike yesterday talking about this, talking about what's going on in Portland. What is the tipping point? The tipping point to me is now. when you've got these businesses leaving, because then your tax base further erodes. This is coming on the heels of not having anybody in downtown, all those little businesses struggling, all the mini marts, all the restaurants, all the lunchtime crowd, the after work dinner crowd, the laundromats, people do, get dry cleaners, get the dry cleaning done, the pet stores for all those downtown people that by the time they make it home to the burbs, their regular store isn't going to be open. So they shop downtown. All those suffered during the pandemic, and now they're suffering further because it's not safe. They're all been broken into a million times, and they're like, yeah, I don't think so. Don't want to be here. So what's being done about it? What's being done about this situation? Mayor Ted Wheeler's office said in a Monday statement that his staff and Portland Police Bureau leadership have met with REI officials over the space of several months, trying to collaborate on reducing crime around the store. The statement ended with this: Mayor Wheeler is committed to further supporting REI to help ensure we retain their business in Portland and help them succeed. All options are on the table as we explore paths forward. Well, that is exactly why Portland is in the situation it's in, and Seattle is actually working its way out of it because our mayor is doing stuff. He, from the get-go, he's like, we're going to sweep this camp. We're going to sweep this camp. We're going to do this. We're going to do this. He's got an action plan for the downtown fentanyl. Some people say, well, yeah, that's much of the same, but he's doing stuff. Whereas Mayor Ted is doing an awful lot of, we need to have a conversation about that. We need to really analyze this. We need to rethink, reimagine, and retrench our ideology on how the downtown can prosper. Meanwhile, it's just getting worse. And that's literally what you've got going on. Not stuff in the right direction, right? 11 overdoses in downtown Portland on, May 31st, I think? Or March 31st. Like, what? You were doing what? Oh, ended up with 3 deaths. I mean, that's not a look that folks want to see in downtown Portland. I don't know if you knew that, but this is the look they've got. So it may seem a little late to be putting those options on the table now. Many viewers of the story, here's a story in Portland. It's run by KGW. It's called The Story, and they got a lot of cool stories on this kind of thing. I read a lot of stories from The Story. This is one of them. Many viewers of The Story reacting to the REI news said that they were fed up with city leadership or lack thereof, because that's really the issue, isn't it? You've got leadership that doesn't really do anything except give Antifa a big hug. Hey, we love you. We love you. Light up half the stores in the city. Yeah, this is a travesty. Our mayor has done nothing. No. That's not true. He's talked about doing stuff. So you're right. He's done nothing. His response to everything is, we've been working with them. Well, what have you been doing? What have you been working? Said Eric. I mean, working is one thing, but getting results is another. I've seen nothing from him. Nothing. All these businesses are folding up, leaving, moving on, and just plain going out of business. And he has not done one thing to help prevent this from happening. He's making the problem worse. Yeah, that's literally what's going on. The issue is some of the underlying fundamental reasons this is going on is because of policy that's been put in place, and not necessarily by Mayor Ted, but by prior leadership that all the residents of Portland voted on. And they wanted this, just like San Fran, just like Chicago. These folks wanted this stuff. And now all of a sudden they're like, this isn't what we voted for. Well, actually it is. How's that working out? Oh, we need some change. What are you going to do? What kind of changes are you going to make? You're going to start to throw people in detox and rehab? You're going to start to throw people in jail? You're going to start to throw people in mental institutions? Because you got to clean up the streets, because that's where you got all the addicts living, right? You got to start cleaning that up. Till you start doing something, it's just talk. It's just talk. So the sweeps in Seattle, that's not a long-term solution, but it discourages people from being in Seattle, homeless, like Portland has encouraged. So the mayor in Portland, he's got, these 5 or 6 big encampments that he's going to, just make these enormous homeless, drug addicted ghettos. I mean, coming soon to a neighborhood near you in Portland. I mean, you got to be excited about that if one's coming to your neighborhood in Portland. I don't think so. You know what I mean? Not good. Not good. What will it take for our elected officials to take concrete action to improve downtown and bring back the vital city I moved to in 1999? You're going to have to hammer down on crime. You're going to have to hammer down on drug addiction. You're going to have to hammer down on some of the gang activity going on. And nobody's willing to do that in these cities. They've let it, it's out of control. They've let it go. I will not go into downtown Portland anymore due to the open air drug use, the ever-present graffiti and trash, the people passed out on the sidewalks, and the general sense of lawlessness that pervades downtown. We can't wait several years to see results. Something needs to change right now. So a lot of what I focus on is this here caused this. And you get all worked up and say, these liberal utopian societies are not working out. It's one thing to say that, but it's another thing to have a corporation like Whole Foods, who's woke as F. REI, woke as F. Leave these cities. That to me is like, all right, this is the deal. It's gotten so bad that even get woke, go broke Whole Foods is like, yeah, we've been here for a year in San Fran, but we got to go. It ain't safe. You got people ODing in the restroom. You got people doing crazy stuff, bringing swords into the store. Homeless folks love a good sword, don't they? It's not because they're homeless, but they are homeless, but they're addicted to drugs and carrying around that sword. I mean, for some reason, they're just like, sword, that's for me. This is going to end up well. And literally, you've had homeless people, and it's not funny. You've had homeless people in Seattle lose their lives because they picked up a knife, they're out of their mind on whatever. And I don't know if you know this, but if you do that to a police officer, it's probably not going to end up all that well for you. It's probably not going to go the right direction, right? As that tends to happen. We've got this little thing in some cities called law and order. Not necessarily in Portland, because you got the law, just not the order. Another one bites the dust. Call attention to the impact the lack of action on the part of our city leaders is having on the downtown community, said Mike. I saw recently somebody was proposing, what can we do about all this vacant commercial space in downtown San Francisco? Let's turn it into student housing for a big university. Yeah, that's going to work out well. Let's make it low-income residential housing in downtown Portland. Let's make it a walkabout type environment where we can all just walk around. Yeah, but have you walked around downtown Portland? I have not. I have everybody to tell me how that's going. And I probably, you certainly wouldn't want to do it at night. I will get down there. I've had so much going on, and I got podcast to podcast. I can't do that when I'm walking the streets of Portland, but I do want to get down there and just take a peek, see, maybe see a man in blue about how things are going and see what's happening. I need to get down to Lounsdale Square, I think it is, see the federal building. The Antifa tried to light on fire a concrete commercial building. How's that going on, guys? Instead of improving, things just seem to be getting worse. I expect this is not the last we will hear of businesses leaving the Pearl in Portland. I hope not, because I've done really well with podcasts on this lately. Back at REI, it's worth noting that the message decorating the store window feels a little different in the current context. It says, better is out there. Where? Tell me where. It's not in the store, because that store is closed, right? Of course, referring to the outdoors. Now, for company leadership, that seems to mean outside of Portland. Whew. That's a low blow. That's right to that's the low blow, right? Welcome to Stumptown. We've got broken pains. It's our next section here. There's a business that has decided to open a new location in Portland this month. That's an interesting choice. Shake Shack already has a location in Beaverton Cedar Hills area, but the new spot along West Burnside across from Powell's Books is set to open next Monday. Many people are excited about the new spot for burgers, fries, and the epic shakes that they've got, but not everyone. Last night, a KGW crew noticed that there's already a boarded up window at the brand new restaurant. even before the place had a chance to open. Welcome to Portland. Here's your coronation. Here's your christening. You do that whole champagne, break the champagne bottle or the plastic bottle in the boat to, christen the new name. You christen a burger shack with brick through the window. That's just what you're doing. Hey, you get to board up your first window. This is great. Popped your cherry. Hey, there you go. Portland police said that the vandalism happened earlier this week. Whoever did it wasn't looking for a burger because they apparently didn't go inside. They simply busted a window and moved along. As you've got so many just crazy people that should be getting help somewhere, people in mental institutions, and then throw that on, they're trying to self-medicate and they go on all these drugs. So you've just got all these broken windows because why not? And that's literally kind of the explanation. Well, you got a bunch of nut jobs running around and they tend to like to break glass. It's their thing. So they do. So tell you square away that, you square away the drug addiction, selling the drugs, just all of these circumstances, moving a Shake Shack in, just like opening an IKEA in downtown San Francisco with nonstop security. It's not really going to do much. Not going to really help. It's not going to pave the way for all these new stores coming in when in downtown San Francisco, you've got Whole Foods leaving after 1 year. Here in REI in Portland, been there 20 years. And it's designed, REI in the outdoors, that is literally what REI sells. It's better out there, meaning don't sit inside and watch YouTube videos about it. Go out there and experience the outdoors. But if you need to buy some equipment for that, you can't do it in Portland anymore. Stores shut down. But it isn't retailers feeling the weight of downtown Portland woes. Arts organizations say that they're also struggling to stay afloat. Anybody that is dependent on foot traffic in a downtown core, especially a San Francisco, especially a Portland, right now is really struggling. They need people walking around. Hey, I'll just pop into this store. I'll just go in here. That's not happening because the opposite is happening. People are being repelled from the area. The story contacted several performing arts companies. While they said the pandemic was a trial, preventing them from putting on performances, reopening hasn't allowed them to bounce back all the way. Audience numbers are declining and it's threatening their future in Portland. People don't want to go into downtown Portland. They just don't. That's why there's so much talk about how can we recreate that good vibes feel that we used to have? Well, you're going to have to do something about the zombies walking around. Because a lot of that is why you've got things going sideways. It's not about housing. It's about people in addiction, and their addictions cost money. So in order to buy those drugs, they've got to steal from the community. Because I don't know if you know, but if you're on drugs, it's hard to hold down a job. So those people they tend to not pay into the tax base. Meanwhile, you've got stores and businesses just leaving. Because, a lot of businesses have figured out, a lot of tech companies have figured out we can work from home. We can have our employees work from home. So they don't need to have all this office space. And at the same time, you've got all these shenanigans going on in a city like Portland or San Fran. And businesses are like, yeah, we can avoid that at the same time. Less office space and avoid all this nonsense. Sign me up. And so this is not a hard problem to figure out. But in the meantime, you've got a tax base that is just being decimated. And now you've got arts organizations that aren't able to bring people in like they used to. And the downtown cores are always where that kind of things goes on, right? You just never have the Oregon Symphony playing 45 minutes out in some suburban mall, do you? No, it's always downtown because that's where all the hoity-toity arts patrons are. The Symphony, to me, I'm not a fan. Plays, yeah, that's okay. You know what? Give me a good rock show in an arena somewhere. Arena rock. That's what I want to see. That's my jam. I've gone to a lot of arena rock over the years, and it's epic. The Symphony, if that's your thing, okay. But, you're always typically in a symphony center. That's not really happening. It's not happening in Portland, right? The greatest threat to the Oregon Symphony today is in the fact that the perception that downtown is unsafe. Scott Showalter, the CEO of Oregon Symphony. This is from a dude who is needing to promote the safety of downtown because his very job depends on it. Hey, Portland is safe. Well, he's saying perception that downtown is unsafe. Well, what gives it that perception? How about all the crime? How about all the businesses leaving that are literally citing the reason we're leaving is because of safety issues? Not that hard to figure out, right? I mean, this is ongoing. It's the number one reason by far people holding back from coming to live performances. Okay. And then right on top of that, you've got we just got through a global pandemic where they told us that if you got close to somebody, you're going to die. You're going to get the Rona. And even if you've had 14,000 jabs, you're still going to get it and you're going to die. That whole thing just drove me crazy. You start to say, well, is it ever going to surmise to the old days, so to speak, whatever that might be, said Kirk Mauser, artistic director for Stumptown Stages. It was always difficult to produce the arts, but now we're in a whole new realm of challenges and difficulties. They can't get the people that literally want to come to their events to come. And you've got one more hurdle to overcome, right? Downtown isn't safe. Downtown is stinky. You got people pooping on the sidewalks. You got people peeing on the sidewalks. You got people passed out. You got people living in tents. You got people, violent attacks. You got people walking into people's homes. All of those podcasts that I've covered, those are all things that are going on, that are happening. You got ODs. You got fentanyl going crazy. That doesn't exactly scream, hey, come to the Symphony. It's going to be good. Wear your best outfit. Wear all that jewelry. Make sure you dress up in that fur outfit. Right? I mean, it's just a no-go. The plight of Oregon's performing arts companies is a larger issue, something the story plans to dive into next week. All right, I'm looking for it, the story. I'm looking for it because it's a business in and of itself, right? The fine arts, bringing people into downtown, not really happening. Shut down in secrecy. Opening late last year, the Behavioral Health Resource Center on Southwest Park Avenue was supposed to be an integral part of the Multnomah County's efforts to address homelessness and addiction in downtown Portland. It's a day center where people living on the streets can access basic needs and hopefully get connected with help. The operative word there is hopefully, not in reality, but, hopefully. Late last month, the Behavioral Whatever Center abruptly shut down. County officials originally said that the staff there needed more training to deal with the mental illness-related behaviors and overdoses they were meeting with on a daily basis. So they open up, and then they just get overwhelmed with just situations that their staff is not able to handle. That's the story. That's the word that's out there, right? Maybe they just flat weren't able to handle it, and maybe it was just overwhelming. But what they did say, their statement was, we're going to shut down. We're better off handling this now up front than continuing our exposure with people not having the training that they need, de-escalation training, all that kind of stuff that you need to deal with. One of the coffee store employees that it was a store that was going to stay open. One of their other stores was going to close. He was like, yeah, I didn't really envision as a barista having de-escalation training at work as a thing. But it is. You run a coffee shop in Portland, you're going to be de-escalating some crazy nut jobs on drugs. That is going to happen. As it turns out, the closing of this store was only a small part of the truth. There was more going on, and Multnomah County decided the public shouldn't know until after the fact. The county learned of allegations that contracted workers were having inappropriate relationships with one another. What? No, tell me it's not true. They were boinking each other at work? And that a contracted worker was using drugs on the job. In Portland? Are you kidding me? And employees banging each other and people doing drugs on the job? Come on now. Is that even really a reason to close down? Were you helping the poor, homeless people out at all? I don't know. Who knows? It's just this kind of stuff where you're like, okay, yeah, all right. This is not shocking. To the extent that the allegations were true, the county found that no government employees or homeless clients were involved. It all had to do with the three companies contracted to run the place. Homeless Industrial Complex? Anybody? So those were the Mental Health and Addiction Association of Oregon, which operates yada, 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 yada. Don't care. It began the night of March 29th when a manager with the Multnomah County Health Department received the complaint. The next day, the county called the contractors to figure out what was going on, and they shut down the center. You can imagine how that goes. So, I mean, keep Portland weird. All right. Yeah, we're doing that. We're doing just that. So you got all this stuff going on. What's it going to take to turn Portland around? What's it going to take to turn Portland around? You got to deal with the root cause of so much of this, and it's drug addiction. It's not lack of affordable housing. It's not. It's not all these other things that people want to point to and go, if we just had more housing, we could handle all this, right? So now you take thousands and thousands of homeless folks off the street, stick them in housing, and how do you think that's going to go? Not great. Not great. We have seen the Petri dish for that example and how that goes down in Skid Row in Los Angeles. It goes sideways. You just stick people inside. Now they're doing crazy stuff inside and they're ripping apart the housing that taxpayers have provided for them. And I don't know if you know this, but that doesn't work out well when your residents rip out the same exact room 1 time, 2 times, 3 times. And that's literally a quote from the CEO of Skid Row Housing Authority talking in an article about what's going on in an environment like Skid Row, where Skid Row Housing Authority is basically turning over thousands of rooms and 29 properties, I think it is, because they're so poorly mismanaged. And the folks that they, put into housing are on drugs and they tear things apart. And so now you've got a situation where you can't keep the rest of these buildings together because the individual units are torn up. Now the common areas, you don't have any money. And so many of these rooms are uninhabitable that they're not creating income. And so this, this entity that's running all this housing is just, it's dying on the vine, gardening term. Doing a bunch of gardening this year. Bunch of gardening. Just spent a whole bunch of money on starts at Home Depot. I'm going to have butter crunch lettuce and spinach for days. It's going to be epic. Yeah, I'm going to make probably a couple of shakes and go, oh, what do I do with this? And I'll give away a bunch. That's how it goes. So downtown Portland's resemblance to a dead mall. Yeah. But it's more of a dying mall because you've still got stuff going on, just not a lot. It's not like it's emptied out. It's still there. You've got the activity going on. It's just not good activity. And that's kind of what a dead mall is, right? You get that group of teenagers that's there just for shenanigans, just for, just having their kicks and doing crazy stuff. You don't want that either. Got to take a stand. Portland doesn't have the leadership to take a stand right now. They don't. They can just talk about stuff, have discussions and discuss why is yet another business leaving our fine town? Well, because it's not suitable for business. Just like dead malls, all the prior businesses that left decided this ain't for us. Right now, you got a lot of businesses, big corporations, REI being one of the most recent to say, we out of here. And they're doing just that, leaving a dead mall behind. All right, that's it for me. Thanks so much for being here. I will catch up with you on the next one. Bye for now.